It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video. This week I'm going to talk about a couple of applications. So one is one that I've been promising for a long time, and it's called NetData. And it really just, you can install it on your system and get a nice web-based overview and dashboard of all the processes and memory usage and CPU usage and resource usage and everything that's going on in your system. And it is customizable through a config script. I'm not going to go through that today. I'm just going to help you get it installed and up and running. But if you install it correctly and set some things up, you can also get information about your containers that are running on that system over on this right side panel. So we'll kind of go through that as well. Now the nice thing about it is you can also set it up through their cloud and have multiple NetData running on multiple servers, but you can access all of those things in a single location on your browser, so you don't have to go log into multiple servers. It's just as easy for me to set up multiple bookmarks to access that page, but it's a really nice application. It's really great, and a lot of people use it. And it's free and open source, of course. The other one is Glances. I've covered this one in the past, but I'm going to show you today a little bit more about Glances and how it can also show you container data if you haven't noticed that and you've been using it. So we'll go through that one as well, and this time we're going to run Glances in Docker instead of installing it natively. Now NetData you can also run in Docker, but you can run it also in native format. I'm going to do native format because when you run it in Docker, for whatever reason, initially even in native format, it wants to show you the container ID instead of the container name, which is a little bit hard to tell what you're looking at when you're looking at a container ID. But when you look at the container name, it's very easy to say, oh, that's Apache, or oh, that's Subsonic, or whatever. When you look at the ID, it's just a bunch of letters and numbers, and it's really hard to tell what that is. So when I run it natively, I can get it set up to show me the names correctly, but when I'm running it in NetData in Docker, for whatever reason, I can't do that. Glances and NetData. So first I'm going to go through the UI for you. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. Okay, because I know a lot of you guys just want to see what does it look like and how does it run. So this is running on my home server that I run here, and you can see when it's got CPU spike use, in use here, and it gives you updates. So I'll show you a couple of things about it. You can see the memory usage and things like that that are going on, network usage, and what it's doing. And then down here you've got some graphs. So if you notice when I move away, it stops updating. And then as I move, so it's going through down here. As I move around, it's actually showing me in time. So I can go back and look, like, where was this thing going? What's happening? And as I scroll across, those change to show me what was happening in time. And if we look out here at the end, it's going to have a little bit bigger usage. But if I come back up to this area, then it's going to show me live updates as it's going, and I can just watch it run. And then if I move my mouse off the screen, it just kind of keeps going with the live updates here. But I think if you switch tabs, it'll stop updating because it only wants to run when it's in the foreground. But as you move down, you see lots of charts, and over here on the right, you can kind of see what you're looking at as you scroll, and it shows you kind of where you're at in the charts. And there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of charts on NetData that you can look at. Now, as you move down, you'll see over here, we've got quite a few things running, but down here we've got this kind of 9-grid thing, and you can see that says Apache, and the next one says CAdvisor, the next one says Chow. These are my containers that are running in Docker on my system, and if I want to see the details for those, I can click. So here's Chow. It's probably not doing much, but Chow reaches out to kind of just look and see if my sites are up or not and send me an email if they're not. So you can kind of see the stats for what's going on with Chow. And then here you can say specifically CPU or specifically memory. I want to see those things. So you can kind of click through these different settings to kind of find out what's going on with each of these containers. So let's go see if we can find one that might be a little more active. Maybe Glances is a little more active. Yeah, there we go. So now we're seeing some updates with Glances and kind of what's going on. And you can see when Glances goes out to poll, then you see these things kind of pop up, and it's just checking the system and then coming back and giving information. But again, you can kind of see what it's using and everything. So these are all just the containers that are running on my system, and I can go out and just check things specifically to see what's going on with that container. So these are great diagnostics for you whenever you're having issues with your containers to kind of see what's happening. And again, if I come down here, I can go through and see, well, what's going on right here. I can see this thing ping out and spike, but then you can watch it live and you can see the same thing kind of happen as it does its thing, and then these things will update. Now, as you move on, so that's NetData. NetData's got a really great user interface, and then there's some stuff over here that you can look at. And again, they've got the NetData cloud that you can set up and sign up for. I don't have any of that stuff done, but you can print reports, you can download and upload configurations, things like that. There's quite a bit to NetData that you can do, but for me, just installing it and running it is great, and I think out of the box it does an amazing job, and you can always just click back up to the top to see everything. So once you scroll back up, just click up here, and it'll come back to the top, and you can just kind of see your dashboard overview up there. And there you go. So you get this little warning like, hey, this thing's not on the NetData cloud, and it just counts down, and then once it counts down, that little tag will go away, and you can see everything pretty clearly. So next we're going to go over to Glances, and this one is running in Docker, and it's running on the Docker machine on the host, but then it also sees quite a bit of information. So Glances gives you kind of a top look, but I'm looking at it through the web browser, so you can run this to run so that it comes out through the web browser, but you can also run Glances to see it in the terminal. So it's a little bit special. I have another video on that, so I'll link it down below so you can see the tools that I showed on that one as well. But Glances is really cool. A lot of people really love this program, and I see why. It's got a lot of great information at a glance, as you would say. But right here you can see containers, and it shows 11 containers, and then here's the name of the container. As you go across, you can see is it running or not, and then what usage it's got going. So if you've ever looked at the CTOP application that I've shown in the past as well, and I'll link to that video, CTOP gives you, it's top for containers. So if we log into that server, let's just do that, and we'll clear that. And if you do CTOP, you can kind of see right here, you get this nice little overview through the terminal of what's going on, and it shows you how much CPU and RAM and things like that are being used by any container at any given time, and you can see which ones are on and off, and you can even turn them on and off from here. So if you like the terminal, I suggest really going out and looking at Container Top. It's a really cool program and really easy to use. And you can move through here and say, I want to expand this, I want to see more information. I can start it, stop it, restart it, cancel, everything like that. And then if you're done, just go back up and hit Simple View. You can see kind of the details of it, and then you can hit Enter to go back to the main view, and then Q to quit. So that's CTOP. But in Glances, you get a lot of this information as well, and this is a nice layout. It's very simple to look at my containers and see what's going on. And again, I'm just looking at a browser view of this server, and I can see what's happening on that server. It's pretty great. So Glances has a lot of container information as well, and I've really been looking for something that I can log into my web page and just see what's going on instead of having to SSH in and then run CTOP and then, things like that. It's really not that much more work to SSH in, but occasionally I just want to open up a browser and have it there, and I can go to that tab and check it occasionally instead of being in the terminal, having to start CTOP, see what's going on, stop CTOP, go and do whatever I want to do, start CTOP again. This just kind of gives me a continuously updating system view, which is great. I know I make it sound like a lot more work than it is, but I'm always looking for efficiencies so that my time is spent well, and I know a lot of you do the same thing, so I hope you'll appreciate these applications and what they can do for you. So in Portainer, you can kind of see what's going on. So I've got a lot of stuff running, and I've got a couple of applications that I'll cover in the future. But today, let's cover how we do NetData and CTOP. So first, I want to go through NetData as just an installation on your server itself. So I'm going to go in and actually do it on the server that I'm on. So I'm going to exit out of that SSH session. And now there's NetData in the repositories for Ubuntu itself, but there's also a separate NetData repository that they maintain that you can add to your servers if you want to get the newest versions of NetData. So if you go to the NetData GitHub page, you can see that they have some instructions for installing it with Docker. But right above the Docker instructions, you'll see that there's this line right here, and it says you can use this to install it on most Linux systems. So it's worth giving this one a shot first. So I'm going to do a copy with Control-C, and then I'm going to go back to my terminal window here. So I'm just going to paste that command right into the terminal here with Control-Shift and V like Victor. I'm going to hit Enter and let that start running. It's going to run through a few things. It's going to check for packages, and then it's going to give you some information here at the bottom. So it says running apt-get update and updating your API or your apt caches. So it's going to try to run that, and then it's going to do some installation stuff, and then it says press enter to run it. So it tells us what it's going to do, and then we're going to let it run through and try to do it. When it prompts you, just hit Y. So in this case it says press enter to build and install NetData to your system, so we're going to do that. And once it finishes, you should see a message something like this, and you know that NetData is installed, up and running. Now to access that installation, we're just going to open up a new tab here on our browser, and we'll do localhost :19999. 19999 is the port for NetData. You see it starts to load up here. And we're going to get some information about this system that we're running on. So it's going to be using up a good bit of stuff because I'm recording the screen and I'm recording the microphone and everything like that. So we expect to see some high usage here. Now in this case, it already has it set up to see that it's Jellyfin is my container that's running. And you can see what Jellyfin's doing. It's not doing much because nobody's watching it. But there it is. So there we've got some container statistics, and we can go back to the top and see what's happening. And it was really pretty straightforward to get that installed. I didn't have to do anything except press enter and yes a couple of times and acknowledge things. And now it's up and running on my system, and I can come to this browser and check it anytime. So a couple of things real quick, that if you install it from your repositories on your system, a lot of times it gets installed where only localhost can access that particular server. So there is a configuration file that you might want to go look for and see if you can change that configuration to allow you to access it from other places. So for instance, on this NetData, I had to do that so that I could access it when I'm not on that server and on another server on my system or on my network. And basically you're just putting in an IP address by which you can access this thing. So we're going to go into our terminal again. I'll clear this out. So let's see if we can find cd/etc/netdata and then ls, and in here there should be a file called netdata.conf, which there is. It's right here. And we're going to do sudo nano netdata.conf. And when you get in here, you just kind of scroll down with the arrow key. You'll see a lot of information. And we're going to keep going. In here we can do Control W, and we're going to do open bracket web, close bracket. And once you find the web section, you just want to scroll down and look for the bind to. And if it's unmarked out like this, if it's not commented out, you want to change whatever it has set, because it may be set to localhost. In this case, mine's commented out, so it's not blocking me from accessing it from somewhere else. But it could be that you have bind to equals 127.0.0.1 or localhost, something like that, in which case it's not going to let you access that NetData server from anywhere except that machine. So in order to change that, you can do bind to just like this equals asterisk. Make sure again it's not commented out, or you can comment it out, stop NetData and restart it, and then you should be able to access it from any machine you want to on your network. So if you want to stop NetData, you do sudo systemctl stop NetData, and you should be able to go back to your NetData page. And if we refresh, it's not going to be running anymore, which we would expect. We stopped it. And then if you want to start it again, you just do sudo systemctl, and we'll change stop to start, and it should be running again. There we go. So it's pretty easy to get this thing started and stopped. It's really not hurting anything to do that. And you can also restart it when you make changes with the restart command instead of start or stop. So that's NetData, basically installing it natively on the machine. I also want to show you how to install NetData on Docker. So we want this to be called NetData. That's good. It's going to run it as a daemon. Now the port, if you have 19999 already in use, then you should pick a different port and put it on the left side. This is the host side. This is the container side, and you should never change the container side port if it's a port mapping like this in Docker unless you know what you're doing. And usually it's only developers who will do that. If you're just somebody trying to run this, only change the left side on the colon here so that it's the host side that you're updating. Now here you've got NetData config etc/netdata, NetData lib var lib netdata, NetData cache var cache netdata, etc etc password, so it's going to the home etc password, and that's read only. So it shows you all the volumes that it's creating, and it's looking for different information from these volumes, basically so that it can fill out NetData for you. Then they have, restart unless stopped, which means unless I stop it intentionally, if the machine reboots or anything like that, restart this container so that it's running for me. It says capacitive add or capacity, capability add system ptrace. So this is just a capability that it's adding, and then security opt app armor equals unconfirmed. So in case app armor wants to block this thing from doing something, you're setting this flag to not have that happen. And then this is the image that it wants to pull. So in this case, I'm pretty good with all of these things. I did make one addition to try to get the stuff coming up for containers. And in order to do that, we would use Docker Compose, but we're going to run it this way first. So I'm just going to make sure everything looks good. I don't have anything that I want to change, which is fine. And we're just going to go back to the terminal. So we're just going to Control X, and we're going to say, yes, we'll save that. And then we're just going to paste that in with Control Shift V again. And we're going to hit Enter. Now, I've got NetData running in the background, so before I do that, actually, let me kill NetData. So sudo system ctl stop NetData. So I don't want NetData running in two places. That's a little weird, and it could use up system resources I don't want to use up. So now we'll do this, and I'll clear this actually. Now we'll run this command and let it pull down in Docker. And that's it. NetData should be running on our server here. So if we go and refresh, we should still be able to access NetData right here on the server, but now it's running through Docker. There we go. So it's going to do the same exact thing that it did before. It's going to look at the system resources, it's going to pull those in, and it's going to map those out for you. You basically gave it permission to do all that stuff with all those volume mappings. So it's a really easy thing to run. Now, if you look over here, though, you don't see any container information, and that's because we haven't told it where to find the container information in this application. So in order to do that, we're going to go back, and I'm just going to run this in a different way so you can see it as well. So I'm just going to say docker stop NetData, and then I'm going to do docker rm NetData just to get rid of that container. I'm going to clear this out, and now I'm going to do cd NetData ls. Yeah, I should have put that other file in here, but we're going to do nano docker compose.yml. And we're going to go grab a Docker Compose file and paste in here, and then we'll create one more, and I'll show you one more mapping. Now, I'll put this stuff in the show notes so you don't have to copy it from here. You don't have to try to freeze the video and type it or anything. I'll put it in the show notes so you can go grab it and copy it as well. So there's a couple of things to remember here. So first, you've got NetData. That's the image we want to use. The container name is going to be NetData. That's what we want. Now here it says enter your server FQDN. So in this case, my server doesn't have an FQDN, but we can put something which is Brian's iMac.local, which is the name of this machine. The port mapping is still the same. If you need to change the port, change the left side. Restart unless stopped. And then it has the capability addition, it has the security option, and then it's got our volumes listed out that we want to map. So here you see that we've got NetData config, NetData live, NetData cache, sys file, sysfsc group is the one that I added. So this is what's going to give us the ability to see the information about those containers. Okay, so this line is not in their original Docker Compose file, but I added it, so this one will be important. The rest of these are in there and already set up, so we're just going to kind of keep going through. And then this goes through and it also pulls down an image for the Docker socket proxy, which is what somebody created. This was added just to try to help get some more information from the Docker to the host about the Docker containers. So it's kind of weird because you're saying I'm in a Docker container and I'm going to go out to the host and now I want to read about other Docker containers. I guess it's kind of what Portainer does, but at any rate, it seems to be able to help with that, but it still doesn't give me the names of my containers. But there we go. If you don't want to run all this stuff, you can just run this top part, just run docker run like we just did and just add this line, and we would still get the container information, but it's not going to have the container names. So if you create this file, you're going to do Control O to save it, Control X to exit, and now we'll do docker compose up -d like daemon. So we're going to run that. It's not going to take that long because I've already got the NetData image pulled down, so it's just pulling down the other one, and it's going to start that stuff up, and it's going to tell me that it's done. And again, if I go back to my tab where I'm running NetData, I can restart or refresh just to make sure we're getting the latest one here. We'll give it just a minute to go out and find some resources, but we should see any of our containers that are running over here as well. There we go. I had to refresh so that it could actually see what's going on there on Docker, but give it a minute just to find all that stuff. But again, this is what I'm talking about in Docker, is it doesn't seem to be able to find the names of those containers, no matter what I've tried so far. So unfortunately, it's just kind of a thing that's not working for me. But you can run it in Docker if you don't care about the container information and you just want to see your system info. Then you can definitely run it in Docker and get all of the system info that you want to get out of NetData. So there's two ways to run NetData, natively and through Docker. Now we're going to talk about glances. So when you talk about glances, for one, I like the color palette better. The black is much better to me than the gray of NetData. They're both kind of a dark theme, but I really like the deep black because it sets off the text and everything a little bit better in my opinion. Glances is really easy to run, and it actually runs in Docker as well, and it's kind of a one-liner. So I really like that quite a bit. So I'm going to go back over here to the glances information. And you can see it says an eye on your system, and they've got a little bit of information. But you can also run it through Docker. So let's go talk about how to do that. So I'm going to bring back up the glances here, and we'll bring our terminal back up, and we're going to set up glances running in Docker. So I'm going to cd, and we're going to go grab that command. So in my notes here, you can see the commands that we can use. Now there's two different ways to do this. You can run it as the dev version, which is much more bleeding edge, or you can run latest, which is kind of the latest stable version. That's the version I tend to prefer, but if you'd like to try something a little more bleeding edge, feel free to run the dev version, or if you want to do development on it, feel free to grab that as well. Really the commands are about the same, so I'm just going to highlight this Docker command right here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my terminal. And I'm just going to paste it in with Control-Shift-V, and we'll take a look at this command. So it's docker run-d, which is, again, as a daemon, restart always, which means always restart this thing, even if it crashes, restart it, whatever. And then your port mappings here. So again, feel free to change these ports if you need to, but change them on the left side. So it's saying these two ports map to these two ports. So it's 61208 and 61209 map to 61208, 61209. And then environment variable glances underscore opt equals -w, and then this variable, this volume here, is var run docker.sock, var run docker.sock, and it's read only. The PID that we're assigning is host, which is fine, and then this is the actual image that it's using. So it's a Nico Largo glances : latest. So this is the one that I found. It looks really great. It's a great job, the guy that made this, so I really like it a lot. But keep up with what's going on, and make sure you've got the latest version. But this is it. This is all you have to do to run glances in Docker. So we're going to hit enter. We're going to let it go pull it down, and then we'll check out this page on our local system here. The one I've shown you already is running on my other server, so we'll get this set up here. Alright, it should be up and running. So again, we'll open another tab, and we'll go to localhost 61208. And here comes glances, which says an eye on your system, and right out of the gate you can see there's a ton of information on the screen, so I'm going to zoom it up for you guys. Now you can zoom this quite a lot, and it goes into kind of what I call mobile mode. So this is what it would look like on your mobile phone, but I'm going to zoom it back out a little bit. We don't need it to be quite that small, so we'll keep coming down. But again, right here, containers. So you can see that we've got strange something, because I didn't set up that container with a name, and then jellyfin. So this is glances, and then this is jellyfin running on the system. So if you want to fix that problem where it gives it its own weird little name, you can go back and you can say docker stop strange whatever, docker rm strange whatever, and then we can go back and rerun our command, and we can just go up here right before the port setting, and we can say -- name equals glances. I don't even think we need the equal, actually. There we go. And if we go back to that tab and just refresh, there we go. Now we've got the right name in there because we told it to put a name, and I can see my container information. You can see what's going on inside of glances, and you can kind of see how this runs. So you can see what's going on with network updates, things like that. And you can set some different settings about it. So if you go out to the page where I've got, I'll link it again in the show notes to where you can get that command from the source itself, and you check it out. They've got some other things you can set. They've got some, you can put in your own glances config, things like that. You can change the timing of how often it checks and so on. So this is Glances. It's really simple, really straightforward. It's a great little overview of what's going on in your system. You can access it through the web browser, of course, which makes it super easy and super great. And then, of course, you have NetData, which, again, if you set up an account with them, you can kind of combine all of your different NetDatas to see information in a single pane. And then you have different links over here that let you switch between those, which is pretty cool. But just being able to see this data without even having to do that and see it update live like this is important. And then, of course, being able to see the information over here about your containers that are running is pretty great. So that's really everything for NetData and Glances. Two really great system server dashboards to see tons of information, including your container information and how it's running. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.